More than 1,000 people have been detained after the riots at key government offices took place in Brazil. Supporters of former President Bolsonaro stormed the buildings, including Congress, yesterday. It was an attempt to topple the government that resembled the January 6th insurrection that, of course, happened here 2 years ago. Today, Bolsonaro said that he has been discharged from a Florida hospital after abdominal pain. He wasn't in Brazil to begin with. And President Biden is now facing mounting pressure from fellow Democrats to extradite him back home. With me now to discuss, Nayyera Haq, a former White House senior director and former State Department senior advisor who spent 7 years working on national security issues during the Obama administration, and Christopher Garman, managing director for the Americas at the Eurasia Group. Christopher, for those who don't follow Brazilian politics closely, break down what happened.
No, I think that the scenes of what we saw on Sunday, on the 8th of January, as kind of your opening statements remarked, had eerie parallels to the January 6th event here in the United States. There was a planned protest of Bolsonaro supporters that had coordinated to come to the nation's capital. It was well telegraphed in advance. Busloads from around the country came. And the security details to prevent kind of these protesters from entering into not only the federal Supreme Court, the National Congress, and the presidential palace, all filled in their duties. Clearly, they were passive before these Bolsonaro protesters. A lot of these security details have ideological orientations that are more conservative, aligned with the former president. They stormed into all three buildings and ransacked the offices extensively. There was some clashes with police forces, but thankfully, there were no deaths in those clashes. Following this invasion of the three branches of government, the new president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, declared a intervention in the federal district, which is the jurisdiction that governs the national capital, and they intervened and took over the security responsibilities. There's a lot of blame going on to local security forces, which were derelict in their duties, as I said. As well, the federal Supreme Court suspended the governor for the federal district, and a series of legal measures are taken about the wide network of supporters towards that. There are some important differences, however, with January 6th in the U.S. It was not conducted in the process of contestation of the results. Lula was already inaugurated into office. President Bolsonaro was out of the country, and there's controversy and debate over the extent to which he was active at all in the organization of this event. At a minimum, he was passive before it, but it shocked the country, and now we're going to see the political fallout from the events that transpired on Sunday.
Bolsonaro might not have his physical fingerprints on it, but many people are looking at this, Nayyera, and saying this looks eerily like what happened on January 6th. And we know in November, the Washington Post reported that Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, two close advisors to former President Trump, also became advisors to Bolsonaro after he lost his election. What do you make of that connection?
Oh, well, Steph, the connection goes back even further. You take a look at 2015, the first bilateral visit that Bolsonaro made to any foreign leader was at the White House with President Trump. They welcomed each other warmly, talked about how much they had in common. And frankly, it's something that the current president of Brazil, Lula, had even mentioned, saying that actually Bolsonaro was, quote, a bit worse than Trump. And so the parallels have been there leading up to this day, including we see the imagery, we see the rhetoric of the big lie, denying the election was legitimate, specifically targeting electoral voting, electronic voting, and saying that and refusing to concede, not showing up for the inauguration. That type of pettiness that we have seen from Trump, we've seen from Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro's son has also visited with Trump directly during this period and met with these same advisors. We know openly that this was being planned, with this gathering, this protest with thousands of people camped out some months in advance, openly planned on social media, minimal security or police response. And President Lula has done something that we did not do in the United States, which is have immediate accountability. 1,500 people have already been arrested in 24 hours. Within 24 hours, all three branches of government, including the heads of states, gathered together in a show of unity, condemning this attack, demanding that they will get justice. We still have not seen that type of bipartisan unity here in the United States 2 years after our insurrection.
Naira, do you think President Biden's going to send him home to Brazil?
I think President Biden's going to have a tough time dealing with the politics of Florida, knowing that President Trump and Bolsonaro are both there in Ron DeSantis' country. It's not just a matter of legal issues. It's political challenges that he's going to be facing heading into 2024. If there are charges, though, brought against Bolsonaro directly, there may be some more legal wiggle room. But the United States doesn't have the type of formal extradition treaty with Brazil as it does with other countries. So there's a legal challenge, a political challenge. And again, there has to be a will to hold insurrectionists accountable, something we haven't seen bipartisan consensus on here in the United States either.
And of course, current president of Brazil, Lula, is set to come to Washington in November to meet with the president. That meeting seems more important than ever. We'll see how it all pans out.